good afternoon. Well, oh, no, good morning. Welcome to another Nottingham Love interview with a local author. She's not from Nottingham, but it's okay. We're local and we're in Nottingham. We have a slightly concerning bar behind us holding the ceiling up, which we're hoping will be okay. And we are in a public space, although no one's in it. So if we do have a little bit of noise, we're going to manage that well. So welcome to Angela. It's so lovely to talk to you. I have read several of your books, and my children have read several books, and we'll show a few of them while we're talking, because what fascinates me most, I think, about Angela is just the breadth of your writing. So just to give you an idea, we have picture books for children, we have poems and sort of slightly longer books for slightly older children. We have more children's books. We've read this one, Dottie Got Lost. We also have some sort of more young adult books. And then we have adult fiction, quite a few set locally as well, which is particularly interesting for us on the Nottingham Love page. And also a series, the Jamie series. So there's just an amazing richness there. Do you just write what comes to you, or do you try to have a mix, or how does it work for you?
Mostly it's just what comes to me. The inspiration for the very first book, Looking for Jamie, was from Goodnight Mr. Tom by Miriam, what's her name? Michelle McGorrian.
Oh, well, that is not an easy one to remember, is it?
About a man who takes in a young boy who doesn't really want him but grows to love him. And that's just what gave me the inspiration to start it. I started it years and years ago, probably 30 years ago, and I used to write a little bit in an old exercise book just every now and again. But of course there's all scribblings and arrows, and when I got a laptop, it's so much easier.
And you're now on to the fifth.
The fifth one is about to be edited. It's being edited at the moment, so I'm hoping it'll be published this year.
So when you started, did you feel like there was a lot of his story, or has that kind of evolved?
No, I was lucky enough to get a publisher, because when I joined my writers group, the very day that I started, my publisher, David Bowman, he started on the same day.
Excellent.
And he wasn't a publisher at the time, but he was just setting up his publishing company. So he said, we'd like to publish your book. So when I'd finished that one, I had decided to go with Alice's story next, but he says, no, we want you to do another one, at least another one or two, in Jamie's point of view again. So it just went from there. And he started at 8 years old, and in the fifth one he's still only 21.
So there's lots of Jamie potentially left to come.
Yes, I've started the sixth one.
Oh my goodness. So do you fit in children's sort of in and around those longer projects?
Yes. I haven't done any Jamie for a couple of years, so I've done the other one. I do more or less one a year.
Right.
Because I started the writers group 10 years ago.
Right. So you started it?
No, started
you started
at the writers
I
group,
see.
sorry.
And have you found a writing group really helpful?
Very helpful, because I didn't know anything about point of view, and when I first started writing, I wrote long adjectives and adverbs everywhere, and no, they told me, you can't do that anymore.
So has it helped just that sort of craft, I suppose,
yes,
of writing
definitely.
To be read rather than writing perhaps what's in our head?
And each week we take a couple of pages and read out, and then we get critique on what the other people of the group think about it. So you get excellent feedback. Sometimes you've got repeated words you haven't noticed, and they will point that out, or even they'll say that couldn't have happened because this happened. Things you don't notice yourself so much.
Is that quite a difficult process though? I think one of the hardest things about writing is it's so personal, isn't it? And then we hand it out to people and they can tell us what they think, and we may not always want to know what they think.
But now I'm used to it. I want them to find things
You've crossed
Because-
that line
yes.
between. Oh, okay.
But because I'm the main editor in the group, I have the red pen.
All the power.
I think some of the other members don't like to say anything about mine, but you don't notice your own little mistakes, do you? So
Absolutely.
I really say, no, please tell me, I want to know.
And there's nothing worse. I remember many moons ago my dissertation, and it was this huge, lengthy piece of work, and 3 different people read it, and it was bound, and it was beautiful, and I got it back marked, so when it was all too late to check, and on the very first paragraph there was a spelling mistake. The very first paragraph, and 3 of us
Missed it.
had just read what we thought
Yes.
was there. It's easy done, isn't it?
It is.
So
It is.
I'm sort of, so Jamie it was inspired by Goodnight Mr. Tom.
That's right, yes.
Where else do you tend to find inspiration?
The peacock bottle, that starts off with Amelia finding a lovely perfume bottle in the garden of the house that she's just inherited. And it goes back to the next chapter, goes back to the girl who lost it there. So she has to get into this garden. It's got an old door that she can't open, so the secret garden gave me the idea for that one.
Oh, another classic.
Right, yes.
Another beautiful story.
Yes, I love that story.
And do you find, is your writing just, I always ask with authors because it fascinates me, how sort of practical you are. Do you write at certain times in a very structured way, or as it comes?
Usually first thing in the morning. I get up, put the kettle on, make a cup of tea and sit down with my laptop when it's quiet, nobody else is up. And I just sit and write until breakfast time. Sometimes that's all I do.
Okay.
In the summer I don't write so much because I'm out in the garden so much. I haven't got a very big garden, but it still needs a lot of work. So
do you always write a sort of the one book, or can you have more than one thing on the go at a time?
I can do the children's ones separate from the adult ones, but no, I just do one at a time.
And is that, I'm just being really nosy now, is that chronological, if you know what I mean? Do you know what's going to happen and you write from the beginning to the end?
No.
Or? Nah.
Most of them, I have no idea what's going to happen when I start. So I'm writing away, and suddenly one word sort of pops up and I think, ooh, yes, that could lead on to something else. So it's a bit like word association. And then that goes, so I write that down and think, don't forget that, and then the next chapter can be about that. So.
And so is it all on the laptop, or do you have a paper?
No, it's all on the
It's
laptop.
all on the laptop, so you kind of figure out all your notes electronically.
And I have a list of all the authors' names and what relationship they are. I've got a program as well that you can, can't remember what it's called now, where you can put everybody's names in, what relationship they are, their characteristics, their personalities, so I can just keep referring back to them.
So you can build that character quite well. Now, you haven't brought the book, which is how I met online, which is Florence.
Yes, I've just realised that.
Which I completely loved. I absolutely love Florence and the Highwayman. And you haven't brought that one. Where does that fit in with your when you wrote things?
That was before the Peacock Bottle. Nancy was the first one that I wrote and self-published. Then I did Florence and the Highwayman. I really enjoyed writing that.
Oh, I loved it. Yes. It was such fun. I loved Florence. I have a Florence.
Oh,
so I was immediately drawn,
yes.
obviously, to the name. But she's just feisty and fun. I thought it was great.
It was sort of Mills and Boone-ish. I used to love reading those when I had time to read.
And historical fiction, because you have the costume and it's so rich, isn't it, to read?
And you need a lot of research as well into how they spoke. Have to use etymology online to find the first date that a word has been recorded as used, as written down. Could probably have been used in speech a lot before that, but so like I can't use okay, just ordinary words that we use nowadays.
Yes,
you can't use.
And I suppose that's also part of the editing process, is to you'd be able to read through and reflect
Yes.
on, is that
Yes.
all in time in
It
in
is,
keeping?
yes. Yes, and they're at the Peacock Bottle, and then this year I've done Harriet of Hare
So
Street.
those are Harriet. And tell us a little bit
Excuse me.
about Harriet, because this has an interesting...
Yes, that was inspired by my mother. She was born in the East End of London, was brought up in the East End, and I do a lot of family tree research, and I found that her grandparents lived on Hare Street, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a very run-down area. And so I thought, I didn't want to write her biography, but I've written a story that a lot of the events in it happened to her. So
Fascinating.
that's why I put a little dedication to her in the front of the book, because she would have been 109 by now. So
Wow.
she died in 1999, but she was nearly 90.
Good grief.
And she had a very hard life.
How do you think she would feel about...
I think she would
Your
love it.
embellishments. Oh,
Yes,
lovely.
I hope she would.
Oh, that's super.
Yes.
I know you often... do you often find... I know some of your books feature local settings, so they're set in Derbyshire.
Yes.
Do you find yourself quite influenced by local
Yes.
people and places? And
Yes, I do, especially Derbyshire, because we go out into Derbyshire a lot. We love having a ride
It's the
out
most
there.
extraordinary
Oh, it
county,
is,
isn't it?
yes.
With the dales and the peaks. And
Yes. And the ones in the Lake District, which are Florence and the Peacock Bottle, my father came from Cockermouth in Cumberland, as it was then, Cumbria now. So I do a lot of family research up there. So we go up there 2 or 3 times a year and spend a week or two and do research. So the area just seems to call to me.
another
Because, yes,
beautiful,
it
stunning
is.
area.
I've gone back to 1520 on my
Wow.
family tree on my father's side, and every single grandparent, great-great-great-grandparent were farmers or yeomen. Every single one. Brothers and sisters branched out into other things, but everyone went back to...
It's
and
a
I've
very
got to-
strong gene,
It
isn't
is,
it?
yes.
And hard work as well. They must have
Yes.
been great
Well,
workers.
I spend, yes, and I spend hours looking into them, finding the new names. It's so exciting when you find a new name. So I use all the names from my family tree for the characters in my books.
Oh, that's
Yes,
lovely.
not necessarily the same Christian name and surname, but
And then,
yes,
you know, of course, they're the right
that's
names for
right.
that period, because that's
Yes.
another... Jane Davis wrote a guest post about how frustrated she is when people use names and words that are out of their time, as you've already
right,
mentioned.
yes.
But of course, if the names are coming from
Yes,
real
and
history, then you know they're
yes.
correct. Interesting. And are all your books historical? I'm just looking
Yes.
at them now. They are, aren't
Yeah,
they? So
all
that
set
passion
in
for
Victorian
history
times, yes.
comes through in your writing.
Yes. Thank you.
What about the self-publishing route? Because I know it's just really tough, isn't it, to publish. Did you try the traditional thing, or did you always feel it would be better to just
Well,
go on your own?
one of the other members of the writers' group, he published his own book, and he showed me how to do it. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try then. So that was Nancy was the first one. A friend of mine painted the picture on
Let's
the
share
cover.
it, let's share it. It's
She did
beautiful,
me the
isn't it?
cover.
He said, "Oh, we're back to the
Goes
front,
on.
so I'll have to do it around the right way."
And so I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And it worked. It was a lot of hard work to start with, but once I'd done it once, then I thought, well, I'll try again. So now I help other people in the group do their books.
Fascinating.
I
And
edit
as you say,
them.
that process can be quite
Mm.
complicated,
It
can't
can,
it? Because
yes.
you need ISBN numbers and you need
Yes.
sort of covers and certain...
I use Create Space, so I just get their ISBN numbers. But I know there can be a problem with them in the British book shops. They won't. But the Bakewell bookshop in Bakewell, they have all my books. They just pay me on sale or return, or pay me something towards it, so they don't have to order them in. I just take up some every now and again.
Okay.
So
So there's
they don't
different
mind
ways
doing it.
around if you go local.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I do think it is quite a tough gig writing at the moment. Do you feel that you just need to do it, if you know what I mean, and regardless of sales, it's something that you would continue doing?
Yes, because I don't sell very many, and sometimes I think, is it worth it? But then another idea comes, and I think, oh well, just
I'll write that one down.
Yes.
Well, they're beautiful to read. It's worth it from my perspective. I don't know. I imagine it is a very dark, difficult thing to do, and I admire enormously. I mean, your output is extraordinary. I think it just overwhelms me. And I'm going to read Harriet next. I haven't read Harriet yet, but she sounds a fascinating character who's handed a baby.
Yes.
And then has to decide what on earth she will do with it.
Yes.
In the days before social services or anything that would help. So what are you working on currently? You've got something in the pipeline?
Probably the 6th Jamie book will be the next one to go back to, but then I want to do some more children's ones as well. I enjoy writing the children's ones.
Lovely.
They're a lot easier somehow. I haven't got to do much research.
Yes, you don't need historical. Well, I suppose you could if you were setting it.
Because he was a cave boy.
Yes, so he can't say
Cal,
okay.
the cave boy.
And where did he come from? We haven't read a Cal book yet. I'm feeling the urge to.
He was ugly to start with when I first wrote it. I think it was a story that had been going around in my head for years and years. But when I looked on the internet, there were lots of books called Og and that sort of name.
Yes, as a caveman, word.
Yes, so I thought I'll change it to Cal. I did change it into a native Red Indian, but that's such a mouthful.
Yes.
And I chose a name that was a native Red Indian name. So Cal seemed nice and easy. And it just went from there. And Dotty and Raggy, that's a story that I wrote about woodland animals, I think when I was at school actually.
Oh wow, how wonderful.
About Squidgy the squirrel. And
we've read Dotty. Dotty got lost. We were a bit stressed, but it's all okay in the end.
Yes.
That's the good news.
Yes. All my books end happily.
Is that, I have had a bit of a thing lately with the endings of books. I feel quite strongly about the endings of books. Do you purposely make sure that there is a resolution at the end? Yes.
Some people say that Nancy stopped a bit early, so I've actually added another chapter onto that one.
Oh.
So that it gives it more closure. And Harriet of Hare Street, I sent it off to a beta reader, and she said I could do with a bit more, so I added a chapter.
You listen to that type of... Yes, I recently read a book and it didn't have that satisfactory ending. It was one where they sort of, it just finishes. And I find that really frustrating.
Yes.
So in my head I tend to write my own. I tend to write a little post-it note and I stick it in the back saying, actually what happened after this bit was, I like a conclusion, I suppose.
Right, because the peacock bottle as well, one or two people have said, but what actually happened? But I like to leave the reader with, sometimes use their own imagination, what they
or a
think
bit of mystery maybe.
Yes.
Do you ever go back, if you know what I mean? I mean, there could be another Florence book. She's quite a fun character, or I'm sure the characters in the peacock bottle, there could be. Do you ever go back, or is there always a new...
I haven't done, because lots of people have said that Lee Croft would easily make a sequel. It's about a lady, Martha, whose husband disappears, and then they found this body of the farmer's son, and she thinks her husband has killed him. And as things progress, the ending could easily inspire another book. So I think that one might have. Same with Nancy. when she goes off at the end, that could inspire another book as well.
Oh,
so,
you'll be busy. You're going. This busyness isn't going to end anytime soon, is it? Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to I'm loving actually meeting people that I talk to online. It's a very strange phenomenon, this modern way of communicating. It's lovely to actually, and to see all your books physically as well. It just shows me how prolific you are. It's amazing. Thank you so much for coming. I shall add a few links because you have an excellent website. So I shall add a few links.
Thanks to my daughter.
And links to some of these lovely books as well, particularly the new one, Harriet of Hare Street. Lovely.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you for having me.